Thank you. I just love this picture that was sent to me. If you can't tell, those are cat traps. The aerial message spelling out TNR. So just a reminder that it is said, I don't know if it's really true, that cats are the only species that domesticate themselves. If you know and love cats, you would believe this, that we didn't go out to create cats, cats found us. And they still do that today. Most people get their cats off the street or sort of haphazardly from a friend or neighbor, as opposed to going to a shelter where they're looking for dogs. More people have a cat wander into their life, whereas people tend to make a plan and a decision to acquire a dog. They have been living extremely successfully at the periphery of our society for more than 10,000 years. So it is a very novel and new idea that we have to control all of the cats in our community, or that they must all live indoors, and that they can't be successful thrivers on their own. So keep that in mind. Cats came inside when kitty litter was invented, which was in post-World War II. So it's a new idea, and it's a very North American idea as well. In Europe, they will have the exact same applications we do that say, are you going to keep your cat indoors? Only the answer, the right answer, is exactly the opposite. They, especially in the UK, feel strongly that cats need outdoor access to be fulfilled. I'm not saying there's any right or wrong answers, but there's different ideas, and probably different needs for different cats. Just very briefly, because I want to get to the vignettes about cat management, is the polls that are done indicate that community residents around this country are very interested in the welfare and the lives of community cats, even if they don't fill a traditional pet role. So there was a survey that was done in 2007, national poll by Harris Poll, for Alley Cat Allies, which is an advocacy group, so take it with a grain of salt. But they actually asked people, if you saw a cat in the street and you only had two choices, the choices were leave it alone and do nothing, or the other choice was take it into a shelter where it would be euthanized, what would you choose? And the vast majority of people said just leave them alone, if that's the only alternative. And in many of our communities, that is the only alternative for especially feral cats that go to shelters, but even many friendly cats going to shelters. And they further quantified it then with a follow-up question that said, but what if you knew it was going to be hit by a car within 2 years? Most people still said, the cat deserves to live. If it's not suffering today, we shouldn't take its life really for its own benefit. And then there's a whole series of surveys about cat feeding. So these surveys generally will ask, do you feed any cats that you don't own? Every time this is asked, there's a substantial proportion of communities that feed cats. And this is actually an international phenomenon too, not just in the U.S. Interestingly, about half of cat feeders don't even own their own cats. And this is important because if all of our messaging and education is via pipelines that reach pet owners through private veterinarians or licensing groups, then we're going to miss a lot of education opportunities for people who have contact with these cats. And then when we boil down all of the numbers about where do cats really come from, those of us who are working on trying to reduce shelter intake and euthanasia by reducing pet overpopulation, it is also very clear that community cats, those free-roaming cats that are either feral or stray, are the primary source of new kittens. And it's even been estimated, because neuter rates are so high in pets now, that if we relied on pet cats to be the source of new pets, that they wouldn't replace themselves. So we have done a really good job convincing pet owners to neuter their pets and making that available to them. They don't always neuter them soon enough, so there's a lot of accidental litters, and we need to work on backing up the age of neutering. But it is very clear that most kittens are born to these unowned or semi-owned cats. And this is the low-hanging fruit. This is our TNR clinic at the University of Florida. We typically will do 200 to 250 cat neuters in a single day, with a lot of you have volunteered, either as students or veterinarians coming to do surgery. A question or a comment we hear a lot is TNR doesn't work, and we're hearing a lot of that right now from Hillsborough County. I know some of you are from Hillsborough County right now. I actually got a last-minute document about Hillsborough County, and that is an addition to your notebook that I thought was a very interesting analysis of some of the comments that are coming from there. But we've heard this all along. TNR doesn't work, and so it's not a good alternative. And so I think we need to say, well, what do we mean by work, and what are the goals of programs that are directed toward community cats. So one level of working is help that cat that's in front of you. And most of our caregivers that bring us cats are not concerned about the population of cats in their entire county. What they're concerned about is that cat in their backyard and improving her welfare or preventing her from developing a whole colony of cats in the backyard. And so we can definitely say TNR works for that cat. We've got nice data to show that welfare and body condition improves after neutering. I'm actually not going to talk about that because I don't have time to do it. I really want to talk more about numbers. So another way that we can say TNR works or does not work is by decreasing cat populations in local colonies, in neighborhoods, or community-wide. And we definitely have data, which I'll share with you, that you can decrease the number of cats in a colony through neutering, and sometimes even on a bigger scale within a neighborhood. It's been challenging to size that up to a whole community. Most of our programs are not big enough to scale up to county-wide programs to decrease the number of cats. But we can focus on areas, and maybe that's what we should be doing. Instead of diluting our efforts over huge areas, maybe we should focus on areas where the impact of cats is the most critical to a community. And we can look at whether these TNR programs or cat management programs decrease shelter intake. And we have a study that addresses this. And then finally, we can look at whether TNR works by decreasing shelter cat euthanasia. So there's two different ways to look at it, keeping cats out of shelters or dealing with cats after they get to shelters.